All right, we're going to head on with this presentation. So thanks everyone for coming. We are going to be talking about leveraging Zoom for languages, since this is our daily life now, and it's important to not only know how to use this tool, but how to leverage it for language learning. I'm going to share the presentation file in the chat in case you want to follow along with this presentation on your own, or if you'd like to be able to click on the links that I've embedded throughout some of these slides. And so you can find that in the chat. Let me know if you have any questions about that. So my name is Rebecca Allison, and I'm joined today by Dave Benson. He is from OIT, and we are so appreciative for him to be here because he's an expert in all things Zoom, and he's taught me a lot already in just a short while, and has shown me some really cool features that I'm happy to share with you today. We are looking at how to leverage Zoom specifically for language instruction, and specifically how to increase your learners' engagement, both in breakout rooms, in your whole class activities, and through games. At the end, we'll have time for questions and practicing some of these features if they are new to you and you want to get some help with them. The first thing I want to do is talk about two new features that are pretty cool. One is the transcription piece. So that is new to Zoom. And I'm going to see if I can start that now. So there's a live transcription piece. And if you click on the lower bar, you'll see a live transcription. You can actually turn that on for yourself. And you'll be able to see what someone is saying. So if you want, you can use that service. There is also the idea of using dual monitors. I love my dual monitors. I don't think I could survive without dual monitors on a daily basis. So I'm going to show what that looks like for everyone. So I'm going to stop my share for a second, and I'm going to show you what that looks like for dual monitors. And you can see, let's see if I share my entire desktop, you'll be able to see that I can actually have separately a lot of things on my screen, which is pretty cool. So you can see all of your participants at once, you can see your live transcription, you can see what you're sharing, and I just love this feature. Let us know if you have questions about how dual monitors work.
I just want to make sure I understand. So dual monitors, literally you have two screens in front of you? Is that what you mean?
Exactly. It does require that you have two screens enabled. I really like the feature. It's not for everyone, but it is something that I love to have.
And when you were sharing your screen, was it sharing both screens, or like what?
Sharing just one screen, and I pulled everything onto one side.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can show what it would kind of look like. The reason I like that so much is oftentimes you want to be able to see what you're sharing, and you also want to see all of your students' faces at the same time, and having dual monitors allows you to use that feature within Zoom. So might be an investment worth considering. All right, let's get going on our presentation. So I'm going to continue here. I want to first talk about formative assessment. Formative assessment is something we do every day in our classes, and it's so important. There are a lot of ways to do formative assessment in your class, and two of the tools are reactions and nonverbal feedback. And to show you how fast Zoom moves, in the last couple days since I've checked, reactions and nonverbal feedback have actually merged into one feature component. So nonverbal feedback, I believe, is no longer a thing. It's actually been merged into reactions, and you can click on reactions to tell someone to go faster or slower, raise your hand, clap during a presentation. Those are all really great ways to give feedback to someone. Polling is another feature that I absolutely love. One of the things that you can do in advance of teaching each day is create a dummy poll. So for example, you might create a true, false question or an ABCD kind of example that doesn't have the answers already there, and then you can launch it and use it for anything you want. So let's say you're asking about which is the correct answer for this, this verb in this sentence. You could write the question or just verbally say the question out loud, and then you can put the 4 or 5 options in the chat. And then you say, you know, A is this verb form, B is this verb form, and then you can launch your poll and reuse that same poll for many different things throughout your class without having to create a different poll every time or knowing in advance what you want to ask your students. So I really like that feature that you can create polls in advance of your class, and you can do that all online. The other piece is sharing chat files. So that's what I've done for you today. There are some security components to this, so it may not be for you. I like the fact that you can share documents directly through the chat in case you don't want to send your students to Canvas. And then the other piece that is new is emojis, and I'm gonna try this out for everyone. I think this is a great way to do formative assessment for checking in with your students. So I'm going to put in the chat an emoji to say, how are we all doing today? So we're gonna check in with each other right now. So if you all want to participate, we're gonna check in on how we're doing. So I've entered something in the chat, and to get an emoji, it is Command Control Space on a Mac. And Dave, can you tell us how to do that on a PC?
Beat me to it. I was trying to type it out, but yeah, you already got the Mac side. For Windows. It's the Windows logo and period.
Fantastic. Everyone give it a go. Tell us how you're feeling today. Awesome, great work. There's other reasons you could use emojis. So I'm going to do something else in the chat, and this is a collection of emojis. I've got an emoji of a police officer, and then an emoji of a no littering sign, and then an emoji of a tree. And you could put this in there and say, all right, students, we're gonna send you to breakout rooms, and you have to come up with a sentence or a short story using these emojis. So there are some fun applications that you can utilize when in your class. So think outside the box. They can be used in a lot of different ways. Okay, we're gonna keep going on to video tools. So video tools are great for learning, and we can really utilize them in a variety of ways. So the first one that I'm showing here is actually using a background feature, and I'm gonna show you 2 different ways that you can do this within Zoom that might be interesting for you. So I'm gonna stop my share and reshare with a different background. So I'm gonna stop my share.
Rebecca, real quick, we got a couple of hands up. Did you guys have a few questions for us?
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
Would you like to go first, Vivian, or? No. Okay. So just a quick question. Is there a way to make the chat font bigger? Because, like, you know, if I'm trying to see your policeman in the tree, is there a way to make it bigger?
I'm going to let Dave answer that one.
Yeah, as far as I know, there's not a way. Let me do some follow-up to find out if there's a deeper setting, but as far as I know, no, not at this time. Other than, I guess, if you make your screen, yeah, if you make your screen, even if you shrink the screen, the font size stays the same.
Right. Yeah.
From what I remember, there are accessibility settings within Zoom. So on your desktop feature, if you go to your settings and then the accessibility piece, I think there is a way to increase the font size there. But again, I need to test that out. And Dave, maybe you can test it out in the background while we continue.
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks for the question. Vivian.
You're right. I went to the accessibility, and it says chat display size, and you can change. And now I can see those emojis better. So thank you for that idea. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. That's great that it worked.
I see the reactions, but then I put them on the chat. For example, you know, I tried, let's see, for example, this one.
Yes.
But it doesn't really appear.
Say that again.
Oh, there it is. That's what but I had to write the word reaction under in order for it to appear. You see?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I don't know why. But, well, that happens to me when I post questions for my students. I usually write like the word questions under, and then they go to the chat. Otherwise, they just don't appear there. Yeah.
You mean on the video themselves?
On the chat, no, for everyone.
Okay.
When I post like today, I post that, you know, the
A thumbs up.
you know, the thumbs up, exactly. And then I wrote the word reaction under, and then it went to that chat for everyone. If I don't write the word reaction under that, it stays there. It doesn't appear on that.
I'm just a little bit confused. Are you saying that when you do like, so you go down to reactions
Yeah.
and then you do like a thumbs up here, like I'm doing
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
Are you trying to get that to appear in the chat as well?
Yeah, that's what I wanted. For example, now I'm going to do another one. Okay, the heart. Okay, the
Sure.
heart. Okay.
So I see your heart.
Yes, we can see it on your video. But remember, what happens on top of the video and what happens in the chat are separate.
Okay, so I click on the heart, and then I go to chats, right? And it doesn't appear there on my chat.
Yeah, those are two separate things. So nonverbal feedback in the form of reactions are meant to show up in the video window, or if you have the participants window open. The emojis that we were just talking about are slightly different. So are you on a Windows or are you on a Mac?
Mac.
Okay, so Rebecca, do you remember, is it control command space?
Yes, it's command control space. That's correct.
Command control. Oh, at the same time, right? Command, control,
and space.
Space.
Oh, you don't need to type that.
Oh.
You just need to press the buttons on your keyboard.
That's what I'm doing. Command.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Susanna was saying something there. Yeah. So just as long as you hold them, it should bring up a little keyboard with the different emoji icons.
That's what it's not happening. Okay.
Vivian, we'll be happy to connect with you afterward to see what's going on for you.
Yeah, that's okay. Now, this is interesting because if I just do this and then I write something like heart. No, but the heart didn't appear.
Yeah, the chat and the video are separate pieces.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to show you how to have a virtual background. So I'm going to show you what that looks like for me. So I'm going to change my background, and I've actually uploaded one of my presentation sections as a PNG. And so you can see my background is now my actual presentation. You'll notice it's a little funny with hands, so you have to be a little careful, but it's really neat if you have your hand in front of yourself, you can point to specific things on your screen. So if you had multiple images and you say like, what's this word? What's this word? Tell me about this. You could interact with your presentation as if you're standing in front of your whiteboard, which I think is really powerful and helps our students connect and feel a little bit more like they're in person. There's another way to do this that I'm going to show you, and that is to share your screen in that format. So I am going to share my screen and use a new beta feature that allows me to share a slide as a virtual background. So I'm going to do that real quick, and you'll be able to see what this looks like in just a second once it pops up. And so now you can see that I'm in a different format in front of my screen. And the cool thing here is I can actually move myself around within this image. And you can see what's happening here. So I think that is pretty powerful, something that I just learned about recently. So those are two different ways to share your screen and show that background. And I'm going to go back to my presentation now.
Will you teach us how to do that second option?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So let me stop sharing and then I will share my entire screen with you for a second.
I'm really happy with how simple it is. It's a really great
Yes.
feature.
So I'm going to move everything around. So basically I would go to share screen and it's going to pop up something, and it's actually this advanced feature called slide as virtual background. So you click on that, share, and it's going to ask you to choose a PowerPoint presentation. So you do have to have that ready in advance. And then you would just be able to open it, and it's going to take a little bit to load. Once it's loaded, then I can actually drag myself around on the presentation.
And does it only work with the PowerPoint at this point?
I've only tried with PowerPoint. Maybe Dave can speak a little bit more about that.
As I know, it's just a beta feature, and it does specifically make you point to a PowerPoint like .pptx or whatever that is. You might have some luck trying other things, but right now it's just meant for PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And then there's some other features too. So for example, filters. So I'm going to show you a little bit about filters on my video so you can see what that would look like. So let's say I am sharing a story about the environment and I really want to be a deer. You know, I can certainly do that. So I hope that you can see my video and you can see that I am now a deer and I can have that presentation outlook. This is a really fun tool. It's not for everyone, but I think it's really neat. You can even use their studio effects to give yourself different eyebrows, give yourself a mustache, give yourself lipstick. So there's a lot of things that you can do with that piece as well.
And can you show us how to turn ourselves into a cat?
Ooh, yes.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Oh, look, you've got it, little piggy. Great job. So going back to this presentation, beyond these effects, there's also the idea of using a green screen. So this is a fairly simple technology. And when you open this presentation later on, you'll see that the green screen is actually a link that you'll be able to click on. And if you click on that, it goes to a video that a local instructor who's been teaching online for some time, how she's using a green screen. So she is, for example, describing how to have a game of showing a place, and then you slowly reveal parts of the image as students try to think about what is this image displaying. They see more of the image as they're going on. So there are some cool advantages to using a green screen.
I also just want to take that point to point out that a green screen is a great option for those that might not have a computer that's capable of running virtual backgrounds. So virtual backgrounds do have specific requirements that vary from operating system to operating system, but it is definitely hardware dependent and can be a little bit taxing on your processor and your memory. So if your computer is not able to do it and you get an error message just saying that you can't use a virtual background, green screen is a great option.
Yes, thanks for sharing that. Well, let's talk about whiteboard and annotation. If you're not using these tools already, get on it. Whiteboards are great because we use them every day in class anyway. The nice thing about whiteboards is that you can allow your students to annotate as well, and we'll try that out in just a second. So for example, what I have here is asking students to say, what is your favorite color? And you can write down their favorite colors, circle them to give that context. You can draw on that image, and the other piece is that they can stamp their name. So we'll try that out in just a second. Remember that there's also the option for you to use the annotate tool when you are actually presenting your presentation. So I am going to show you what that looks like. So I am going to use the spotlight tool. So you should be able to see now that there's a red dot. So that can help students visually understand what part of your presentation you're pointing to. So I am going to do, I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to start a whiteboard together. Everyone can see the whiteboard? Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. So let's try it out. Everyone write down how you say welcome in the language that you teach. And if you are new to using the annotate tool, you're going to go to the top and you're going to click on that black space and click annotate. And you can either draw or you can use the text tool. So I'm going to use the text tool. Great, awesome. Awesome, fantastic. Oh, and look, that's fantastic. So we can write in different characters. That's so powerful for what we're doing. So now let's do this. Why don't you use the stamp tool to tell us the ones that you know or the ones that you don't know. So let's use the check mark if you know that particular one. And then if you don't know it, then use an X to show us that this is something new to you. Fantastic. And notice that you can see who's writing which one. So I think this is really powerful for games as well. So there's a lot of applications we can have here. And then me as the instructor, I can choose to clear all the drawings, just my drawings, or clear the viewer's drawings. So there are options for you as well here. So I'm going to clear everyone's drawings and I'm going to stop the share of the whiteboard and we'll continue on. Okay, so there's a lot of applications for using the whiteboard and the annotation tool. So let's talk about boosting your students' engagement. There's a lot of ways to do this, and you are so excellent already at doing this, but we can take it maybe a step further in our Zoom applications. So let's talk about different ideas first. So you might use show and tell. You could do a role play or simulate a scenario. You can do a reflection or a takeaway. You could solve a problem within a time limit, group discussions, create a game or a puzzle, or do an interview. And the tools you might consider are Whiteboard within Zoom, collaboration tools just like Google Docs, or multimedia tools like Canva or Adobe Spark. In fact, this presentation was created with Canva, different than Canvas. And those are both free tools. And I wanted to share one particular exercise that I think is particularly unique, and I've used it in the past. So this is a tool to engage your students in interpersonal and presentational communication. So you would first assign your students to breakout rooms, give them 5 minutes to come up with a fictitious product that everyone will want to buy. And then they use the whiteboard tool to draw an image of the product. And then they would save that image to their computers, a PNG or PDF. And then they would come back to the main session, share the image in the file chat, or they can share their screen. And then each group would present and sell their product. I've had some really funny experiences of what students have come up with. It's a really powerful activity because they are so creative and gives them that outlet. And you can then take a poll to find out whose products is going to get crowdfunded. So those are some ideas of how you can engage your students in your Zoom sessions.
And
beyond that, you can,
Rebecca, that
please.
In the breakout room, they create their own whiteboard that the other breakout rooms cannot see, and then they save it as a PNG. When we come back to the big Zoom room, that's when they just share the PNG.
Exactly. Yep. Save. You can share the PNG as a chat file if you have that enabled for your Zoom sessions, or you can just have them open the PNG and they can share it as I was showing. They can point to the product, or they can just share it as a regular screen share. Great question. So let's talk about games. There's a lot of ways you can encourage students to be playful in your classroom. My colleague Karen recently told me about lyrics training, and this is a great way to engage students in YouTube videos. So essentially this tool plays a YouTube video and it has the lyrics in the bottom of the screen, and it leaves out sections of the lyrics that the students have to choose what is the correct one. So you play this in choice mode, sharing your screen, and as the students listen, the screen will show blanks and multiple options. And then with the Zoom Annotate feature, your students can choose which is the correct option for the video that's being played. You can play Where in the World. You can share your screen and zoom in on an image of a place. So it's maybe a tree at first, and then you start slowly zooming out and you get more of that image, and the students have to figure out, where am I in the world? Doing directed drawings. This is a really fun, simple activity, as you can describe a scene to your students and they have to start drawing the image and see if they can figure out what is happening in that scene. You can play charades, Pictionary, Simon Says, Show and Tell, or use a game platform like Kahoot or Quizlet that are pre-created. You could also try magnetic poetry. Students can create a word or phrase bank similar to Mad Libs, so they can create all these elements of a sentence within a whiteboard, and then they can rearrange those elements on the whiteboard to create different sentences and to practice their sentence structure. So these are just some ideas to get you started on how to have a great experience in your classroom. So I'm going to stop talking for a moment and let's discuss. First of all, what's working well in your Zoom class and what could be better? We'd like to hear from you.
And can I just get one question? That lyric thing that you were sharing, I didn't totally get how. Do you have a sample of that, or what that looks like, or what that?
Which one?
The lyrics training one.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I don't have it up, but let me see if I can magically get it going. So I'm going to stop my share and start a new share of another window. And I'm going to go to lyricstraining.com. And we're going to go to the web version. And the nice thing is that you can choose a language. Now, this is not available in all languages, so I don't believe Hebrew is available right now, unfortunately, but I'm sure that you could email them and push for them to add languages. So I'm going to do something in English as an example, and let's say, see ya. So you would click on this, and I'm not sharing my audio right now, but you would click on, for example, beginner. I'm going to click choice mode, and then it's going to ask me to start an account. I'm going to play the video, and it's going to start playing, and you'll see that you have these words at the bottom and which one you have to choose. Don't cry, so there we go. I hope that helps you understand kind of how it works.
That's cute. Great.
It is fun. Great question. So yes, what's working well in your Zoom classes? What would you hope could be better?
So I use the chat a lot, breakout rooms. I use Kahoot, but I have them with their iPhones do it, and it works well. And I do that. I would like to also have a background of the country we are working on in general. I think Dave said something about using the green screen for that or something like that.
Yes,
yeah, that's what I can't use.
Yeah, you don't need a green screen to have a virtual background. You can see I don't have a virtual, I don't have a green screen with me today, but you can use those two different options that I explained, and we can certainly practice with those if you wanted to get some help with understanding how those work.
Okay.
Any other comments about what's working well, what could be better?
One thing that I've been enjoying doing is each class we start with like roles that they have. They each we cycle every class through certain roles. Like it could be one is a comedian and they need to bring a joke, and one teaches an expression, and one shares like a cultural factor. So they each have a different role, and it just gets them participating. And that's been really great. And in terms of Zoom, yeah, so breakout rooms and the chat, and I just share my screen a lot. That's probably the one I You know,
Yeah,
it's useful. You know, I'm curious if as a university we have some, what I'm trying to get is some kind of Zoom etiquette. What are the expectations that students are told, you know, in terms of keeping the screens open or, you know, turning off notifications on their computer so it doesn't go bing, 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 all the, you know, stuff like, do we have a unified, or can we create some, now that we're all on Zoom, just like there's like an honor code or some system for being in class, what do you think is the appropriate, you know, request for a Zoom class?
That's a great question. Dave, maybe you can tell us if the university has come up with anything like this. But I know that we can at least talk about how we can personalize Zoom etiquette, or what we call Netiquette, in our classrooms.
Yeah, so I popped right there a link to the Zoom service page, and it's a link of our FAQs. And if you scroll down to using Zoom for remote teaching and learning, there is some of that stuff in there. So, you know, can I require my students to comport themselves on Zoom as they do? As you can see, it's also governed by the student classroom and course related behavior. We don't have like a pretty infographic or generic documentation for what students should do, but in general, they should follow the same classroom etiquette. However, I appreciate the feedback, and I'll definitely take it into consideration, and maybe we can put something together on a single page or something that you can point students to or something like that.
I think it would be really helpful.
I would say that in ALTEC's website, there's actually a netiquette guide if you want to go there and follow some ideas.
Could you share the link to that as well in the?
Yes, I'm going to find the spot on our website, and I'll share that in the chat.
Thank you. Yeah, especially for language classes, having the idea of, you know, having your camera on is so important, especially with, for example, nonverbal languages like American Sign Language. You can't actually have a conversation in ASL if you don't have your camera on. So there are classes that are fully requiring you to have your camera on because the facial structure is so vital to the language. And that's the great thing about having a virtual background. If a student isn't in a place where they want to be showing their environment, they can use a virtual background. Of course, virtual backgrounds do take more bandwidth from their internet, so we have to be mindful of those components. But I think there are ways that we can build in netiquette to our classes to have these things in place. And yes, you're so right. If someone has their email binging when you're in a class meeting, that can be really distracting for not only the instructor but fellow students. We also have to be mindful of the accessibility component. Some students might be really distracted by those things, and little changes that we do as instructors and as peer students can help those students who have processing or attention issues be able to connect with our classes a little bit more freely and easily. Great question. All right, so we're gonna shift gears a little bit and brainstorm together how else we can use Zoom in our classrooms. So I'm going to put a link in the chat for everyone, and it's going to have a document that we can all collaborate on. So if you want to go ahead and go to that space, I'm going to stop my share for a moment. And I'm going to share another document with you all so that we can be on the same screen. So we have a lot of Zoom activities here. Now, most of these are copied from the presentation that we've been talking about, but there are some new ones. So for example, I had someone in the last training add another one. So I'd like everyone to kind of take some time right now and think about how can you use Zoom in your classroom? Use these as inspiration. Tell us what's been working so well that you want to share with everyone. And then we will have this document available on our website for any faculty member who wants to get inspiration and add things about what's going well in your class. They can say, oh, I've got this cool new idea. I'm ready to go. So let's take a few minutes here and add some ideas.
And literally type them in.
Yeah, please go ahead. This is a document for everyone to use. It can be a game, it can be an activity that you have in class. It could use a feature like a breakout room, chat, file transfer, polls, reactions, sharing your screen, or a Zoom other external tool. So let us know what works well and if there are additional tools that someone would need in order to do this activity. So one of the additions from a previous workshop was someone had suggested to use virtual backgrounds to teach different parts of the house and what things are inside it. So they had a virtual background of a kitchen and they would point to different parts of that kitchen and the students would have to tell them what's in that room, what are you seeing? So they would have their background as whatever room of the house it was, and then the students can explain what do they see. So that's a great way to play house, if you will, and introduce new vocabulary if you don't have the physical objects in front of you. So I'm seeing a few additions here, so I'm just going to shout them out. So we've got starting class with rotating roles that each student has. So for example, in comedian or newscaster. You can create memes in the target language. Oh, I love that. That's so innovative. You know, we want to connect with our students on their level, and that's a great way for us to connect with them and be relevant in their lives. Fantastic.
I would like to share one thing that I actually saw on a workshop. I don't know exactly if I typed that it would be understood, but you know how you can see all participants in a grid, right? So that creates a board, let's say, where each square is a place on that grid, and you can play bingo with that. So for example, say, show in your screen what are you drinking right now. Actually, we could do that maybe. Share in your screen what we're drinking, you know, and you share with the rest. And yeah, and then if we have 3 waters in a row, then, you know, we win or whatever. So, you know, that's a good activity to warm up participants, for example, or if you want to change subjects, you went from something super intense to something that's a little bit more light, you know, it's a quick activity just to, I don't know, to engage participants.
Yeah, very, very cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So, and are you talking about the actual grid of the Zoom?
Yeah, the actual grid of the Zoom. Yeah.
Gallery
So,
view.
Question
you
about
have
that.
12 participants, right? They
Yeah.
align into lines and columns and lines, and you have to see if somebody got a bingo, got a line.
My only question with that, I believe they see different grids than what we
Yes.
see, right?
Yes, they
It
do.
arranges differently for everybody. So maybe I can see it, you cannot see it, right? That's my board. That's my bingo board. So I got a line of waters, and I could take a picture to prove a screenshot to prove that I got it. Yeah, it's just a little fun activity. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And I wanted to mention, I think Dave is probably about to mention this as well. There is actually a way to create a seating chart within your class. So if you are in Zoom and you are seeing the students in gallery view, you can drag and drop the videos. So I don't know if I have this enabled right now, but you would be able to move the students around into a specific configuration and then force that view to your students so that all students have the same exact configuration of their gallery view.
And just before we move to the next topic, I also want to point something out in case, I don't think it's the default behavior, but or at least it wasn't in the past, but if you open the desktop settings of your Zoom application and you go to video settings, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see that you can have up to 49 participants per gallery view. So if you have multiple screens, you'll see 49 per screen. Just want to point that out.
Fantastic, thanks so much. All right, so we're gonna get back to our presentation, and I want to ask, what is one activity from today that you might consider trying in your class, or some idea that you think, oh, I'm gonna do things a little differently when I meet next with my students? Any ideas?
Liking this, what you shared with the PowerPoint, where you can be in the screen. That makes it look very professional. I like that kind of setting, and to experiment with that. I think that'll be fun.
Great, thank you.
And
Yeah,
you can
I love that too. And the whiteboard.
Mhm.
Very powerful.
Mhm.
I'm not an instructor, but I might play the bingo game. And on the weekends, I might have a beer instead of my glass of water during work.
Yep.
Absolutely, great. Well, thank you everyone for attending today. I want to make sure that we have time for questions right now. As you know, ALTEC is constantly trying to make sure that you have the newest tools for your language teaching, and we are continuing to offer workshops throughout the semester. Our next workshop will be on immersive technology, and then we are also planning a panel on accessibility. This is something that we're currently learning about, and we'd love to share what we are learning about this topic with you as you help your students have a positive experience. You can learn more about that on our website. You can always reach out to us via email if you have questions or you need help. So I'm going to end my screen share and open it up for any questions that you may have about Zoom or other topics about language learning and teaching with this application.
Thank you for supporting us and offering these workshops. I'm still curious about testing in while we're online. It seems like one of the things that kind of fell, because you just have no way to really, students can have the book open anywhere or even use, Google Translate while they're taking the test. So that feature feels a little bit like it kind of got lost in Zoom, the whole memorizing component. Wondering how you deal with that.
That's a great question. I'm going to actually ask Susanna, who's been teaching language for some time, for her ideas on this topic. But I might start with thinking about maybe we need to reformat how we are assessing students, that our traditional multiple choice questions perhaps aren't the best way to assess learning at this point. And perhaps we need to be thinking more constructive of doing more types of essay work where it's not going to be something that you can just open a dictionary and find the answer to.
Mhm.
But let's have a discussion. Vivian, what are you using in your class, Susanna?
I use the essay. I use the essay question for everything. I don't use any multiple choice. So, and that works because they have to formulate sentences with what the vocabulary they know. And so that's a good thing. Now I do something, and I don't know if this is, I just do it, but I don't know if this is possible or not. They have like some, practice handouts or conversations we've had in class, but at the time of the quiz, I prefer them not to look at them because they should already know them, no? So I put unpublished for the time of the quiz. I unpublish them and then I publish them again after. Is that possible? I mean, I'm doing that, but is that okay?
Yeah, I think that's fine. You make that piece not available for
for
them
that moment.
during the quiz. At the same time, our students are very smart.
I know. There's always a way,
You
but
know, I'm sure
it
they
takes more time to find it anyway.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, that's a great question. And actually for language acquisition,
Oh, Susanna, I think you broke up a little bit.
It froze. You froze.
am I I'm back. Yeah, I think I'm back. So yeah, for language acquisition is hard sometimes to ask them an essay or something like that. But for me, the best way to know if a student knows the language is having an interview. That's time consuming, right? But an interview is the best way to test them on the spot if
Like
they control the
orally?
vocabulary, grammar.
Like orally, you mean? Like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, through Zoom. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So ask them some questions there and see if they can answer that. You're not evaluating every component then, because then you don't know if their writing is right or not. For that piece, they can easily cheat, right? They can easily go somewhere and find the answer. So yeah, that's a little bit more difficult.
And if you're looking for those conversation assessments, consider using a tool like either Voicethread or Flipgrid, where you can have a prompt, and then your students can record their response to that prompt without you having to take your time to meet with each student, and then you can grade it as you have time. The nice thing about Voicethread and Flipgrid is that students can then respond to other students, and that can be part of your assessment, is having students respond to one another in that way.
Does
Or have
that,
them pair up.
does that integrate into Canvas, or do they need to be in Voicethread to?
Both integrate into Canvas. I personally really like Flipgrid. I think it's a lot more manageable than Voicethread.
Okay, maybe at some point I'll bug you to show me how to integrate it into Flipgrid into Canvas, like as an assignment. Right now, what I'm having them do is record through the Canvas video, because that has an option, and but you can't really respond in a moment. You know what I mean? Like you respond to the whole thing, and it'll be nice in some. I believe is it Voicethread or Flipgrid where you can respond where they make the mistake?
I don't know about that functionality in Flipgrid. That's probably something that has to do with Voicethread. I don't know enough about it to answer that question, but I'm sure OIT has documentation on their website, since I've done quite a bit on Voicethread.
Okay.
And how do you have your students, for example, if they are in breakout rooms, how can they record what they are talking about at the moment in each breakout room? Can that be possible?
Absolutely, it is possible. You can't do it on their behalf. You would have to enable that for them. Dave, do you want to talk about how that works?
You just need to manually go to each participant and allow them to record, but by default, they will not have that behavior. So before you break them out into breakout sessions, go to their tile in the gallery view, or I believe you can do it in the participants pane, and just choose allow to record. And then when they go in there, the people that you've designated to allow to record, they'll be able to record locally to their computer. It will not be to the cloud, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
One thing that I would love that you could do in Zoom is, I know it sounds crazy, but it actually what it happens in the classroom, which is to listen to everybody at the same time. I know it might seem like that it's impossible to understand anything, but you know, the ones that have been in a classroom, for some reason we developed that capacity to have students work in groups and be paying attention here and there, and be able to jump in a group and say, careful with this word, or you're now using the past tense. And you know, I don't know how it would be through Zoom, but I would like to try it. I would like to, you know, to be in every breakout room at the same time, kind of.
So you're probably already aware of the fact that you can go into each breakout room individually, right? Okay. Yeah, I was going to say that's probably your best recreation of that atmosphere. But when you say it, I can imagine sitting at the front of a room and being able to listen to a lot of different discrete conversations, and it's a really interesting situation. So thanks for sharing. If we can think of anything or a similar feature, I'll definitely let you know, maybe through Rebecca.
Thank you.
Yes, that's a feature that I've been hoping and waiting for Zoom to enable, because I know how powerful that is. And it's so important to us as language educators to be able to hear what's happening in each of these conversations. I will say that Zoom is continually doing release updates. You can update your Zoom. If you haven't already, make sure you are updating your Zoom on a regular basis. And then just watch for those updates. You know, the live transcription, for example, is a very new feature that I found out, I think, 2 days ago. So they are consistently adding new features as they are able to update their software. So let's hope and pray that Zoom can enable that feature for us in the future.
Yeah, and I just put a link to the feature request form in there. It takes a quick second. The more people they get these requests, the more they'll consider them. I just don't want to get anybody's hopes up too much, because I think on the technical side, there could be some privacy things there. If you were just allowing the host to just listen into people's private breakout rooms, even though you can still join them, you're not joining invisibly or listening invisibly. But there may be something that they'll come up with. We'll see.
That's a great point. Thanks for sharing. We have just a few minutes left. I wanted to ask if there's any other questions that you have about using Zoom for language teaching, or general questions about this platform, or if you wanted to try something out that you're unsure of how it works for you as the host or for your students on their end.
I'm curious that subtitle, the live transcript thing, that's just in English, right? There's no other languages at this point, or?
That's correct. So Dave and I tested this out yesterday, since it was a brand new feature that I just learned about. And unfortunately, it is only available in English at this time. Again, I would hope that this feature could be rolled out to other languages in the future, but that's an AI component.
Yeah.
So I could see that it's helpful for meetings, especially if you have someone who is deaf. They could be able to read the captions, but unfortunately for teaching languages, we don't have that possibility right now.
And I am putting in the chat the Netiquette PDF. That's actually the reference for many universities, and same for us. So I'm putting that reference in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. We will be sharing a recording of this session on our website. If you prefer not to be in that recording, you can private message me or email me, and we will replace the image of you and your video with an avatar in its place. So thank you all for coming, and please reach out at any time if you have questions or you need help. We're here to support you, and we want to bring up the amazing things that you already do in your classroom. So thank you all for your hard work at being remote educators. You're doing awesome, and we are so thankful to have you on our teams. Have a great rest of your day.
Nice to meet everybody. Take care.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you, Rebecca and Dave.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.